Yes, I think it is.
Connect to the very way. What we doing?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As we make a start to this, Yes? Yes? It's not working?
There's no amplification, it's just, these are mics off. See that?
Yes? Testing? Good? Yes. Working now? Hello? Yes? All right, good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are gathered here to witness the signing ceremony for what we refer to as the Memorandum of Understanding for the upgrade of the streets within the city of Roseau and also Portsmouth, for which we will be subsequently doing the work in phases. Before we start the ceremony, I invite Monsignor Thomas to lead us in a word of prayer.
Thank you very much. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us be glad and rejoice in it. We stand here in the name of three persons, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Let us pray the words Christ taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Almighty God and Father, despite anticipated fluctuating weather, we thank you for the beauty of this day, which marks the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding for the Roseau and Portsmouth Enhancement Project. Bless the parties concerned, and may we appreciate the reality of a government which is working for our nation. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Monsignor Thomas. I now invite Her Worship Mayor, Mrs. Irene John, to give a few welcome remarks. Mrs. John.
Good morning to everyone here present. I wish to acknowledge the presence and extend our heartfelt thanks to His Excellency Charles A. Sarver, President of the Commonwealth of Dominica, Honorable Ambrose George, Acting Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica, and other members of Cabinet, Ambassadors His Excellency Dr. Damian Dublin, Ambassador to Costa Rica, His Excellency Dr. Philbert Aaron, Ambassador of the Commonwealth of Dominica to the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, His Excellency Manuel Nanton, the Ambassador of the Commonwealth of Dominica to Libya, Mr. Kendall Johnson, Permanent Secretary Acting, Minister of Public Works, Energy and Ports, Mr. Ian Fields, Consultant, NSG Management and Technical Services Limited, Heads of Organizers, Heads of the telecommunication companies, General Manager and President of local companies, managers and banking institutions, executive members of the Dominica Labour Party, Father Eustace Thomas, the President of the State College, other persons here present, the media. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure in my capacity as Mayor of the City of Roseau to know that Roseau City Council is being recognized and has been encompassed in the program of activities for the signing ceremony of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Ministry of Public Works, Energy and Ports and the NSG Management and Technical Services Limited for the Roseau and Portsmouth Streets project. Roseau City Council is very excited and is anxiously waiting the beginning and completion of this project. This auspicious occasion symbolizes a milestone in the advancement of our country's infrastructure development. We wish the NSG management team and our local partners all the best in their endeavors and pray for God's blessing on the project and on the Commonwealth of Dominica. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. John, Mayor. I will now give a few remarks on the program for development. Before I do so, I wish to acknowledge the presence of the Honorable Acting Prime Minister, Honorable George, honorable members of Cabinet, and also to acknowledge our Minister for Public Works, Energy and Ports, Honorable Blackmoore, the Excellencies Ambassadors, Monsignor Thomas, Her Worship, the Mayor, heads of department in the government service, heads of organizations, and I believe we have represented here DOMLEC, the WASCO, maybe the IRC, Discover Dominica, Invest Dominica, Dominica State College, Dr. Peters, among others, heads of telecommunications companies, representatives from local companies, representatives from the banking institutions, other invited guests, and the media, and the listening public at large. We are very pleased to have you there today to witness the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, for Roseau and Portsmouth Enhancement Project. The program for development, in very broad terms, comprises the necessary infrastructural development required to promote and to sustain economic and social development in the city of Roseau and the town of Portsmouth. Under this program, the following are considered. For Roseau, the rehabilitation of the streets in the city to include drainage, utility upgrade, road pavement upgrade, sidewalks, landscaping, and street lighting. Addressing parking and other facilities for public transport, rehabilitation of the West Bridge, a bypass to the Botanic Gardens, and concept designs for cruise ship terminal development. For Portsmouth, similarly, the rehabilitation of the streets within the town to include drainage, upgrades, utility upgrades, road pavement, sidewalks, landscaping, and street lighting as well. Construction of a multi-purpose administrative building in the city, in the town of Portsmouth, and a bypass road to the Cabarets. The existing condition of roads within the city of Portsmouth, and the same can be said for, within the city of Roseau, sorry, and the same can be said for Portsmouth, can be described as dilapidated and lack the capacity to carry out their intended function. The roads in their current conditions are insufficient to carry the loads of an increasing volume of traffic. And as a result, they have suffered significant deterioration. The net result has been very high costs of associated road maintenance, high levels of distress to the traveling public, and equally high vehicular operating costs, because we have to buy shocks and tires ever so frequently. With continued land development within the city and town, the loss of green space, tree and other vegetation cover, the speed of surface runoff associated with high rainfall has increased. The capacity of the existing drainage is inadequate to safely dispose of such high and fast-running discharge, thus resulting in flooding that we see ever more frequently. The inadequacies of traffic management systems, provisions for parking, coupled with large numbers of public transport buses and taxis, pose a continued challenge for us with regards to safe and efficient traffic flows. Facilities for safe pedestrian travel within the city has been a concern for a long time. The existing conditions of sidewalks has increased the risk of personal injury to pedestrians. I believe that if we are to remain on par with our neighboring sister islands and to excel in our economic development, we have no choice but to embark on a sustainable and environmentally friendly developmental objective or initiatives to promote the upgrade of both Roseau and Portsmouth. The overall program for development as outlined cannot be done at one time. As a result, the first phase of construction considers as follows. For Roseau, the construction of a new West Bridge and the rehabilitation of Independence Street from the West Bridge back to the King George V Street intersection. A condition survey of the West Bridge has shown severe deterioration in the structural components of the bridge superstructure. Not only does the single-lane bridge not have the capacity to deal with the increasing traffic volumes, the reinforced concrete deck and steel beams continue to be stressed to the design limits. Such a condition warrants replacement. Similarly, we are well aware of the physical conditions along Independence Street, which is one of the busiest streets in Dominica. Such conditions of poor drainage, inadequate sidewalks, poor parking, etc., has been a cause of concern for a long time, and those have impacted very negatively across sectors of development. For Portsmouth, the first phase of construction considers a bypass road to the Cabrites. This new access is expected to complement completion works and also the functioning of the hotel project funded by the government of Morocco. All of the above proposed construction will be preceded by the necessary design phase. A significant part of the process will be consultation with the stakeholders, primarily the businesses, the utility companies, local residents and others, and persons likely to be affected by the works. A lot of thought has been given to this, and we have learned from the experience of the Roseau sewerage project done here a few years ago. Also to feature highly in the project is the integration of local capacity, local engineering, equipment, and labor within the framework of development. With those few words, I now invite the lead consultant from the Energy West Indies Limited to share some remarks and an indicative time frame for the project. I will first call on Mr. Steve Hobson, chairman of the group, to say a few words. Subsequently, Mr. Fields will be giving some remarks. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Acting Prime Minister, Minister, if I may, I'd just like to say a few words. As you can obviously tell from my accent, I'm not from the West Indies, but I've spent more than 45 years in this region. And I think I've probably been to most of the Caribbean islands in that time. I'm often asked by people overseas, which is the best island in the Caribbean? And I usually say, well, what is it you're looking for? Are you looking for white sandy beaches or casinos, or what is it? I said, but if you're looking for a true Caribbean island where man's footprint is still fairly light, then there are not that many islands where I would recommend you go. Places like Nevis, Grenada. I said, but if you really want to see a tropical paradise where man's footprint is particularly light, then I think Dominica ranks right up there at the very top. I think when I look at this beautiful country, the thing that strikes me is that it still has so much history and heritage. And I say this because in many of the countries I go to, it's a sad fact that there hasn't been more done to protect that wonderful heritage. I think we all need to remember just how much pain and work and suffering went in by previous generations to create what we now enjoy. And I'd like to obviously pay tribute to those past generations for leaving here in Roseau and Portsmouth some particularly handsome buildings. And I really applaud the people of Dominica and the government for having responded so positively to the proposals that we've laid in front of the government. It's been one of my objectives over these years to try to say I've left something behind. After all my career is finished, I would like to look back and say I was involved in that. And it's therefore given me very great pleasure to be involved in this project. It's going to be a long project, and I know that we are going to have to face a lot of challenges. But, you know, past generations also faced a lot of challenges, and they overcame them. Here we have the opportunity to save, protect, and preserve a wonderful heritage. And I asked the members of the public to be sympathetic. Yes, there'll be times, I'm sure, when my name will be cursed, when you're sitting in that traffic jam and you can't get to school on time, or you've missed that meeting. We are not coming here in any arrogant fashion. We've come here to listen, to talk to stakeholders, to members of the public, try to understand what it is that you would like to see. We obviously can deal with some of the simple infrastructure. That's technically, it's a case of problems that can be solved. But what we don't want to do is leave this project and feel that we could have done better, that we could have done more to enhance these beautiful towns. So we are going to be working very closely with the Mayor, with the Ministry, with all the stakeholders, the taxi associations, the tourist board, but most especially with the people who live and have to work in these Roseau and Portsmouth. And to repeat again, I really am excited by what we are going to be doing over these next few years. I hope we can get it right most times. I hope that Mr. Joe Public will be patient and just recognize that, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Roseau wasn't built in a day. Portsmouth wasn't built in a day. But if we all work together, I think we'll be very proud of what we achieve. And I would like to say, I noticed that mention was made of Dominica following. I have to say, I think in this case, Dominica is leading, because I think that what is being proposed here today could well become a model for the Caribbean as a whole. And I'd like to commend everybody who's, I repeat, been so enthusiastic about what we've proposed. And I thank you again for placing your trust in my company to be part of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hobson. Now I invite Mr. Fields to give a bit more detail to the program.
Good morning, Mr. President, Acting Prime Minister, Minister Blackmoore, members of the Cabinet and our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've had a very, very good introduction from the CTO Johnson, Permanent Secretary, regarding the project. And I think hopefully some of you had the opportunity to look at the display boards that are around the room, give you an indication of the elements that comprise of this project, and hopefully you get to see some of the impressions of what the end result will be. But I think CTO Johnson and Mr. Hobson were correct with the language they used. There are challenges. There's going to be challenges throughout this project. And some of those challenges will be seen and some won't be seen. And some of the challenges that the general public will not see is really the work that goes into ensuring that what is built is lasting and is functional. So just a little bit of background on that side of things. Nothing really can be implemented unless you've got a very, very strong plan. And behind the scenes, there's a tremendous amount of work goes into traffic studies. The traffic study really is what gives rise to the whole project. We're talking about mobility, how traffic flows through the city, and cascading down from that, we have all the other issues regarding parking, vendor stations, public transportation stations. So all these elements must be thought out in great detail, but not just to solve the problem for today, but we must look forward. What is the traffic situation going to be 15, 20 years from now? Those are the challenges that we must meet today so that it's a truly valid project. In conjunction with that, then we have to start looking at the stormwater drainage system and some of the other utility systems. How are those developed and planned, again, to meet the challenges in the future? So all of these things must be carefully thought through, planned, but it must be done in complete and utter cooperation with the stakeholders and with government. So while we introduce our engineers, both a lot of local engineering assets, but some of our offshore expertise augmenting that, while we develop the plan, there must be recognition from the stakeholders and have their input to make sure that everybody is assured that what we develop is the correct solution, is pertinent. So we're going to talk about something in the region of 3, possibly 4 months. Traffic study takes a little bit longer, but coming out of these studies will be a very comprehensive plan. The plan must take into consideration the full implementation. We touched on the issues regarding just the public stakeholders, disruption to traffic, disruption to the cities. Obviously, you've got to be making sure that we're not disrupting the heartbeat of the city. People have to get to work. People have businesses. All that must be taken into consideration when you implement such a plan as this. So we have to be highly sensitive to these issues before we start work. And then during the work phase, there has to be consideration for people, arising issues, and make sure that we can address people's concerns as we go forward. So tremendous disruption, but I think, as we say, behind the scenes, there's a lot going on, but hopefully, we would like to roll this out in well-considered phases and ensure that we get some immediate results and people can see the benefit of the disruption. And I think, as Mr. Hobson addressed so eloquently, was that we're able to start to see some of the true beautiful architecture of Roseau. We're starting to see the real bones, and I think that is the most rewarding part, is we can see immediately the real beautiful architecture is there, and our job is to bring it out to its best. So essentially we're talking about 3-4 months of very careful planning and design in cooperation with government, and then we'll be able to roll out the construction in phases, and the priorities will be the West Bridge. That will help to free up a lot of traffic flow. We're looking at some temporary and long-term parking solutions, and then also working on the upgrades, specifically on Independent Street, and that will be implemented in phases. So that would probably be starting in the first quarter of next year, I would think, that in terms of construction. So we are certainly delighted and excited about this project, and I think everybody would agree that it really is very timely and certainly leading in the Caribbean in terms of these initiatives. So we look forward to working with the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. I now invite Honorable Rayburn Blackmoore, the Minister for Public Works, Energy and Ports, to deliver a few remarks. Mr. Blackmoore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Ambrose George, Father Thomas, Mayor of Roseau, officials of the consulting firm, NSG, and technical services, cabinet colleagues, distinguished guests. I want to also recognize in our presence members of the media, and let me also express my gratitude to the staff, members of the Ministerial of Public Works, Energy and Ports for working so hard to get this event off the ground. And thank you very much. I recognize Mrs. Burton and Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. John, sorry, and all the other persons involved in the process going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends all, this month, the month of October 2014, is certainly proving to be a very important one in our history as a people. Very soon from now, we shall be renaming our main airport. And of course, today, we're just about to witness a very historic moment in our social and political development as a people. The signing of an MOU that will lead towards the total transformation and revitalization of the cities of Roseau and Portsmouth. Ladies and gentlemen, friends all, no physical structure can stand firmly without this. The same general concept applies to a country. A country cannot therefore realize any significant economic and social development without a strong physical and social infrastructure. You may recall in 2007, the Dominica Labour Party administration undertook a road audit to give us an appreciation of the conditions of our main roads and feeder roads. Based on the information coming from that audit, only 25% of our main roads was in fair condition. Let me reiterate for emphasis. Only 25% of our main road was in fair condition. Not good, not excellent, but fair. No country can therefore realize the promise of prosperity with a road in such terrible condition. Weak physical infrastructure constitute a major drag on any economy, Dominica therefore being the exception. Having been informed by that road audit, we set forth a task as a government and as a people to achieve the following. By the year 2015, 60% of our main road to be in excellent condition. And by the year 2020, 100% of our main roads to be in excellent or perfect condition. As we speak, in 2014, 65% of our main roads are in actually excellent condition. I use the word main because I know thereafter persons are going to look all in the bushes and other portions of the country to identify where our roads are not in good or excellent condition. I accept that and respect that, more so within a democratic system. Having said that, I'm the first to admit that there's still much more work to be done to get our roads where they ought to be going forward. But I can give to you, the people of Dominica, those of you in Dominica, or those of you listening via the internet overseas, that we have been able as a government, as a Labour Party administration government, it's important to underscore that, and I'm sorry for some of you who do not like to hear me say the Labour Party administration, but I think it's important to have that said. I want to therefore give you the assurance that we have been able to put in place the requisite document detail for the development of the other aspects of a road infrastructure. Let me just take time out to attempt to catalog what I mean by that. One, in due time, we are just awaiting the selection of the contractor for the actual physical commencement of works on a road from Bajad, traversing all the way back to White River, where under the European Union B envelope, we shall be spending $23 million to comprehensively rehabilitate that segment of road, starting first with a new bridge at White River. And of course, some major interventions to be undertaken in the Odalis area, which has been a very much challenged area throughout our history as a people. That is what the Labour Party administration, under the leadership of Roseau Portsmouth, stands for. Another very vulnerable section of road is the road that traverses from Pokasi all the way back into Pidisufre, Ambrose, and the Carib Reserve. We have already secured under a World Bank financial initiative $45 million for the total transformation of that segment of road from Pokasi back to Pidisufre, Carib Reserve, and of course, Ambrose. That again is what we in the Labour Party and Dominica stand for. Another very challenged area, insofar as having access from one locality to the other, is from Jubic going back into Fonseca. We have already secured the funding for that, for the stabilization of the slip, of the cliff in Jubic, and for the total transformation of that road from Jubic going back into Petit Savan. That is what we in the Labour Party stand for going forward. You can recall that some years ago we witnessed the collapsing of the Mathieu Dam, where the section of road from the Layo Bridge traversing back into Pokasi was totally undermined because of the flooding activity that took place. We have already secured as a government and as a people, because the government works on behalf of the people who have elected it, $33 million from the Caribbean Development Bank for the total transformation and realignment of the road network from that area I just referenced. And it also includes the rehabilitation of the road from the bridge going back into Pokasi. That in itself is a very significant part of a road stop in this country. And of course, a significant portion of that area is within the MOU constituency. Now, let's going back to that area I just referenced. It's important to understand the methodology we shall be embarking on Because you may recall that we have spoken about getting funding for the construction of a new bridge in the Clarkall area from the People's Republic of China. That is still on the cards. For a matter of fact, just recently, we had in Dominica some experts helping us to inform the design for that bridge going forward. And so the money that we would have used from the Caribbean Development Bank for the construction of the bridge is going to be used for the improvement of the road from the bridge going back into Pocassi, and I think that is very important to be underscored. And we also have begun the detailed analysis for the total transformation of the road from Point Michel going back into Soufriere. This road network it also is a very vulnerable area. What we are now doing in the Champagne area is an interim measure to pave the way for a more comprehensive approach to be followed in due time. We're also talking about linking the road from Despo into Campbell. And you may have realized I left that last on my list. And as we speak, we have already signed contracts for the rehabilitation of the road in Petit Savan going back into Vertica de Lis. Work will recommence next week. And as I speak, work is going on in Roseau Portsmouth, and where we have entered into a contractual arrangement with a company for the total transformation of that road in Roseau to the tune of $1.5 million. We also have entered into contractual arrangements with 11 local contractors from Pennville, and work is about to begin within the next 2 days down in Pennville, where we shall be spending an additional $1.9 million to get the road to be where it ought to be in 2014. And the mantra of the Dominica Labour Party is about the upliftment of our people and Dominica. And that is why we have been able to put in place policy programs and projects that are responsive to the needs of our people of Dominica. Having said that, we have been able to place emphasis on our main roads, our community roads. But the main tongue of any country gives one the first impression of the entire country. And we within the Labour Party, we are of the view that in 2014 and beyond, the city of Roseau cannot remain in that way. It is healthy within the democratic arrangement for us to have varying views. We may not agree on political terms or on religious belief, but the refreshing feeling about a human being is that we all have central nervous system, and that we can look at certain facts and come to rational conclusions. And all of us will admit that the roads in Roseau are all tired. All of us will admit and agree that our drains are inadequate in the city of Roseau. All of us will admit and agree that we have tired sidewalks in Roseau. And all of us will admit that our current road stock in Roseau cannot adequately accommodate the increase of vehicular traffic. The time, therefore, is now for us to do something about it. And I'm confident the only government that can do it is the Dominica Labour Party under the leadership of Roseau Portsmouth. Permit me just to say that. Don't get mad at me. I'm just trying to state the facts as they are. So there is therefore a rationale for undertaking a project of that magnitude. I am confident upon the conclusion of the works to be undertaken, we are going to realize a total revitalization and transformation of Roseau and Portsmouth, thereby paving the way for the emergence of a new Dominica. we can start to feel and visualize the new Dominica that we're about to experience as a people. We owe it to our people. We owe it to our children and our children to create Dominica as a beacon of hope for all of us. Dominica does not have to remain the way it was 20 years ago. That is why we are marching on as a people to get Dominica where it ought to be. Let us give the people, the residents of Roseau, the business sector, and the local residents alike, that this administration will recognize, shall recognize all the property rights of the inhabitants of the city of Roseau. But having said that, we therefore call on you for your support and understanding. It is not nice during the rush hour driving around Roseau. It is difficult to get a parking around Roseau. We have no green space in Dominica, in Roseau, and we talk about green and a nature island. We have to, therefore, demonstrate that by our deeds, by doing things we ought to be doing. And within that design that we are speaking about, provision is being made for landscaping. We all say we like to go down to Miami, the city, and you saw how beautiful the place is demarcated, how beautiful the landscaping is. We can do that too in Dominica. And I really, at this point, have to express my gratitude to the Acting Permanent Secretary, who has been doing a tremendous job thus far, and all the other persons within the Ministry of Public Strategy and Port. I see, Mr. Emil Lancelot, who is also the Acting Chief Technical Officer in the Ministry of Public Works, Energy and Port. Thank you very much for your work so far. We believe, and I'm one person who believe, in the main, public officers are good people, and they work hard to get Dominica to the point where it ought to be. So, I wish you well, and I want to just say to you, those of you here, you can recall that we met here, I think it was on the 13th of May 2014, when we made a presentation and as to the technical impression of the Roseau Enhancement Project. And within that presentation, at its conclusion, there were a number of interventions and suggestions made. What we have done, we have taken on board those interventions and suggestions that made and still make sense. And they have been able to inform us. And based on that, we have been able to develop a new initiative. And as a result, a better informed Memorandum of Understanding. And we are looking forward for your continued participation. And let us go back to our respective institutions and localities and say, hooray, once and for all, we're working together to get Roseau and Portsmouth where they ought to be and to create a platform for takeoff as a people. I wish you well, and may the good Lord continue to bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Blackmoore, for your spirited submission and remark. I now invite the Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Ambrose George, to deliver some remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kendall Johnson, Acting Permanent Secretary
in the Ministry of Public Works, Energy and Ports, and our Master of Ceremony for this very important function here this morning. I would like to recognize at the head table the Minister for Public Works, Energy and Ports, the Honorable Rayburn Blackmoore, Monsignor Eustace Thomas, the Mayor of the City of Roseau, Mrs. Irene John, Her Worship, Mr. Stephen Hobson, the Chairman of NSG Management and Technical Services Limited, Mr. Ian Fields, the Consultant of NSG Management and Technical Services. Of course, I recognize Mr. Johnson a minute ago, Master of Ceremonies, but substantively the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Works and Energy and Ports. I want to recognize also my cabinet colleagues, Honorable Julius Timothy, Minister for Health, and Senator the Honorable Alvin Bernard, the Minister for National Security. The members of the corporate bodies here represented, banks, business organizations, insurance, you name it, engineers, and we have representation there at large. Our invited guests, I want to recognize also the President of the Dominica State College, Dr. Donald Peters. Our invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, staff of the Public Works Ministry and other heads of departments of the government. A very pleasant good morning to everyone. At the budget address of 2014-2015, the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister for Finance made some profound statements and spoke to matters of policy. And one of these was the Roseau and Portsmouth Enhancement Project. The Roseau Enhancement Project, as well as the Portsmouth Enhancement Project, are two projects in our mind which are intended to address some of the many inadequacies that we have in our major city, Roseau, and our second town of Portsmouth. The Permanent Secretary acting made reference to some of the activities that will be undertaken at those two projects. But I just want to reiterate the fact that, for example, the program of activities as far as Roseau, the city, is concerned, will include the rehabilitation of the streets in the city, including drainage, utility upgrade, road pavement, sidewalks, landscaping, and street lighting. And the Minister for Public Works gave what I refer to as a sort of a graphic illustration of what obtains now in terms of the conditions of our drains and sidewalks and the inadequacies which go along with those pieces of infrastructure. So these will be addressed. The provision of adequate parking and facilities for public transport, the rehabilitation of the West Bridge, a bypass road to the Botanical Gardens, and a cruise ship terminal design concepts. For Portsmouth, we'll be focusing on the rehabilitation of the streets in the town, including drainage, utility upgrade, road pavement, sidewalk, landscaping, and street lighting. Very importantly, the construction of a multi-purpose public building. We believe that we have come of age when Portsmouth should in fact have a multi-purpose public or government building to house the many offices that we have scattered through the town of Portsmouth. And recently, the Prime Minister made reference to even accommodating the office of the council of the town of Portsmouth and the office of the Member of Parliament. I believe that's something that is well commended and we should pursue. The construction of a bypass road to the Cabrits. As we are all aware, the Moroccan Hotel is being constructed around the Cabrits area. And certainly there's need for adequate parking and other facilities which would complement the hotel. And therefore, that would absolutely require the realignment of the road that currently leads into the Cabrits facilities so that we can accommodate those additional amenities and facilities that will be required for the operation of the Moroccan Hotel. So that in itself is another important aspect of the enhancement to be undertaken in the Portsmouth area. But for the time being, and we can probably refer to this as the first phase of the project in terms of a focus, we'll be looking in Roseau in particular for the replacement of the West Bridge with a two-lane structure, lighting fixtures, etc., and the reconstruction of the road and drainage infrastructure along Independence Street. And those of us who reside and do business in Roseau and who commute into Roseau regularly, especially on a rainy day, will experience the flooding along the Lagon area on Independence Street and the inconvenience that causes to the business houses and to commuters alike. And certainly enhancing Independence Street and making it more amenable to commuting and doing business along that section of the city certainly is something that is commendable. So that aspect of it will be looked at during the first phase of the project. For Portsmouth, the focus will be on the designs for the bypass road for the Cabrits in Portsmouth. And as I said earlier, that will be required to complement the works at the Moroccan funded hotel, which is presently on the construction. The project is of high priority to the government and is consistent with the Ministry of Public Works, Energy and Ports strategic objectives of providing safe, reliable and environmentally sustainable infrastructure, as well as for this facilitating economic activity within the city, Roseau, and of course the town of Portsmouth. We would expect that during the construction phase of the project, in particular the Roseau project, that there will be certainly a level of inconvenience. That is expected. No matter how phased and structured that the work will be undertaken, but certainly people will be affected. And therefore, as usual, we'll be calling on the residents, we'll be calling on the business people and the commuters within that section of the city to exercise patience and to collaborate with the contractors and the people involved during the implementation phase of the project. And I'm sure that if we are all concerned about the present state of the city and our efforts at improving on the conditions there, that we would expect the full collaboration of all the stakeholders in that respect. I would like to commend, of course, the consultants, NSG, for their works to date as far as the project is concerned, the staff of the technical division under the leadership of the acting permanent secretary, whose substantive post really is the Chief Technical Officer of the Ministry of Public Works and his staff, the City Council for their collaboration, and all the other stakeholders who have been involved in the preparation and planning of the project to be undertaken. As we speak now, and the Minister for Public Works made reference to the extent of infrastructural development works which are currently and have been undertaken all across Dominica, and the continued efforts at improving our road network within the country, especially the East Coast Road, which is soon to begin in terms of addressing some of the challenges that we have in those areas. We believe that the airport, the Memorandum Airport, is another major piece of infrastructure in terms of the improvement of the terminal building, the parking, and all that has been undertaken, the overall improvement of the Memorandum Airport. And of course, we have received notice that the Memorandum Airport will be renamed the Douglas Charles Airport, and that activity is geared to take place on the 27th of this month, and we expect Dominicans far and wide to make themselves available to witness that historic moment for the renaming of the Melville Airport. But it is somewhat disturbing, though, that people would seek to instill a level of fear or panic in the minds of our people, giving one the impression that hosting an activity at the Melville Airport or within the precincts of the airport would end up with an aircraft falling from the sky, so to speak. Because, you know, the way that the member for Margaret unfortunately described, you know, the whole question of emergency and contingency plans, and, you know, I was very much, you know, disturbed at those pronouncements. I mean, when we were commissioning the night landing at Melville, there was a big crowd there. Everything went very smoothly. The plane landed, all right. Everybody clapped and was, you know, ecstatic about the whole thing. And I don't see all of a sudden why we should expect some catastrophe at Melville Hall at this stage, just for the renaming of the airport. So really and truly, this is very, very disturbing. Of course, we will also be naming the Lot 2 of the airport road, that is from Poncasset to Melville, and that road will be named the Dr. Nicholas Liverpool Highway. And I believe there's no doubt in the minds of every Dominican that, recognizing the work that Dr. Liverpool has done, not only in Dominica, but throughout the region and internationally, that it is deserving that the government would recognize his sterling contribution, internationally renowned jurisprudence, that to name a vital piece of infrastructure like Lot 2, Poncasset to Melville Highway, after him, is certainly something that every Dominican should cherish. So we are certainly on our way to improving the infrastructure within the country, but the focus for the next months and year, probably years to come, in terms of the overall project for the enhancement of Roseau Portsmouth, is something that the government is very serious about. We are confident as a government that we can find the resources to undertake the two projects, that's Portsmouth and Roseau, and to bring our main town, our second town, Portsmouth, and our city, Roseau, at a level that really one can enjoy, you know, coming to Roseau, doing business in Roseau, visiting Roseau. And because there are some features within our city that that many other countries probably do not have. For example, a river running through Roseau. I mean, not many countries or cities would have a river, a live river, running, through the city. And that is something that is commendable for us as a country. And the historic views in terms of the architectural heritage of our buildings in Roseau, and the preservation of that heritage is something, again, that we should cherish as a people. So I believe that we are on our way forward to really taking our city and town to that next level which we have been pronouncing for a while, and to ensure that we create the environment, not only for business, but for recreation within the city. And for example, the bypass road, or the road bypassing the Botanical Gardens, I believe that in itself, when completed, will be an additional feature which will not only enhance the traffic flow within the city, but certainly will add to the ambience of the Botanical Gardens itself, and creating better convenience and ability for people and visitors alike to commute throughout the city. So, in summing up, I would like to again commend the consultants, the Ministry of Public Works, technical staff, and all the stakeholders, the City Council, which is a very important entity within our city, for their collaboration and effort so far, and continued collaboration in the future to ensure the successful implementation of those very important projects, the Portsmouth, or Roseau Portsmouth Enhancement Project. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable George, Acting Prime Minister. We now have the crowning moment of this event, of this ceremony, and that is the signing of the documents between the Ministry of Public Works, represented by the Minister, and the consultant, NSG West Indies Limited.
What we doing?
Okay, we have just witnessed the conclusion of the ceremony, the signing of the MOU. I now invite members of the head table for, refreshments, followed by the rest of the audience. And to say thank you very much for attending today's ceremony. Thanks.